So we're going from an era of collaboration to data integration. So what I see is that we're more and more, as an insights function, integrating all that information to answer the business questions.
The second thing is really how do you look at the outcomes that you're after, not only about what's happening today or yesterday, but where is it that the consumers are going to go tomorrow? Answering the future question about where the puck is going.
For me, in my opinion, one big trend of next year is going to be mix of integration of all the different data sources and methodologies and connect it with storytelling. We insights folks need to start building stories rather than just looking at data and bringing that to decision making.
In terms of where we could leverage AI to the max and to the best, so that we make sure that we focus and we're quite also efficient, like AI is, in the ways that we utilize it.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, those videos had some really insightful tidbits on the future of market research. They're from external insights experts, and I think they're a great way to kick off this webinar, giving us a glimpse into what our friends and partners think before we dive into our own vision. So we'll talk more about those videos a little bit later, but first, let me officially welcome you to Opinio's What's Hot in Market Research 2025. Welcome to our webinar, everybody. Market research is evolving faster than ever. The industry is changing, and to stay ahead, we have to innovate, we have to adapt, we have to stay agile. New technologies, new methodologies, new expectations from businesses mean that our field is constantly being redefined. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. My name is Hussein El-Mella. I'm a senior research consultant here at Opinio, and I'm very excited to be here moderating today's discussion. One of the things I love about our two panelists is that they perfectly represent the way we approach research at Opinio. As an interconnected journey between research, driven by our brilliant humans and masterminds, and product, the engine pumping all of this through, constantly evolving through collaboration, and I can't think of a better duo to explore this than the two experts joining me today. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, we have the amazing Louisa, Opinio's very own Director of Research, the woman of steel, as I call her, behind our research team, and a true force in pushing our research methodologies forward. Louisa is constantly questioning, refining, elevating the way we do research. And if you've ever debated research methods with her, something that I've done quite often because, well, she's my boss, you probably left that discussion rethinking all of your beliefs on methods. And I think that's what makes her so brilliant. And on the other side, we have Gordian Danka, Opinio's own Chief Product Officer. Now, one thing I need you to know about Gordy is that he's a true innovator when it comes to shaping the future of market research. And for those who don't know him, he has this rare ability to not just predict where the industry is headed, but actually build the tools that will take us there. And in a way, deciding the direction of the industry. And if there's anyone who can transform ambitious ideas into groundbreaking research and product solutions, it's Gordian right here. And I'm very excited that he is joining us here backstage. And he told me backstage that he has some surprises in store for us. So I can't wait to see what's in store. Before we jump in and kickstart our webinar, quick note that you should now see on the sides of your screen the chat and the Q&A function being activated. Please feel free to use the chat to send in your reactions, your comments at any point during the webinar, and use the Q&A function to send in your questions at any point. We have a dedicated time to discuss questions towards the end of the webinar, but we will also discuss questions that pertain directly to what we're talking about in the webinar. So I would say, let's just get right started and pull up our title slide over here. What's hot in market research in 2025? And maybe let me start directly with Louisa. Louisa, what's your reaction to the videos we just saw, and what are we talking about today?
Hi, Hussein. Hey, everyone else. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Hussein. So as you know, I'm obsessed with methods, but I'm also obsessed with our customers and the customer in general. That's why before we even did this webinar, we did a lot of qualitative research, speaking to insights leaders to marketing leaders to hear their opinion, what's going on in our industry and how they see it evolving. And you've all seen a few clips at the beginning of this webinar from Julie, from Augie, talking about how they see it. So if I had to synthesize it, after all of these discussions, I would say there is 3 massive changes happening in our industry right now, affecting all of us, no matter if we were working on agency side like we do, if we are working on client side and insights on marketing, this happens to all of us. And the first one, I don't think this really is a surprise, is the rise of AI in like every aspect, but of course also in the insights industry. So AI, it is here, it's here to stay, and it's already forcing us right now to adapt the ways that we work and we interact with stakeholders, and forcing us to develop new skill sets and to also lead our teams in a different ways. On top of that, there's loads of economic pressures. And I feel like it's getting worse by the day if you look at the news. But when you speak to especially insights teams, but also marketing teams, they will tell you that every year they have to do more with less resources. So it's like, hey, please do 50% more output, but we're cutting your resources and your budget and your time by half. So there's all these economic pressures, and they're also accelerating like as we speak. And then lastly, there is also a lot of focus on the methods that we're using and the marketing science behind our whole industry. So there's this strong urge of moving from insights to foresights. So from description and the present to prediction and the future. So these 3 mega trends, I feel like, are really pervasive in everything that we're doing. And they put a lot of pressure, even more so than normal, on efficiency gains and effectiveness gains that we just see in like every aspect of how we do business right now.
I think these are definitely challenges that everyone here can relate to. I mean, I see in the audience, we have some returning faces, we have some familiar names, we have some clients that we know, we have some new people. So I guess where I want to take this discussion here, when we're talking about efficiency gains, the effectiveness gains, and some of these massive changes that we're seeing, maybe I want to take the discussion a little bit more to the product side. And over to you, Gaudi. And my question is to you, where does product really fall into this? And what's hot in market research?
Perfect. Thank you. So hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. I'm Gordian from Opinio, and I'm in charge of our products. So at Opinio, our main goal is to give you the tools and insights you need to understand your customers better than anyone else can, empowering you to lead in your market. And part of that means constantly exploring new ideas and finding creative ways to give you clearer, faster, and more useful insights. Today, we're going to dive deep into some exciting developments driven by the AI industry. I'll share our bold vision for the future, how market research will look in 2 years with our fully autonomous AI CoPilot. Then I'll show you what's available right now in 2025, including automated survey programming and AI-supported insights generation. Finally, we'll discuss what's coming soon, such as our qualitative research innovations. I'm excited to hear your ideas and answer your questions towards the end of the session in our Q&A. And my aim is to make you leave today with a clear understanding and confidence in where our industry is headed. So let's start by imagining the future. Around 2 years from now, picture having an AI co-pilot by your side that does everything you'd expect from a skilled researcher, completely on its own. This co-pilot isn't just a tool, it's more like a personal assistant who can take care of your entire research process. Imagine logging into a platform where your co-pilot immediately knows your goals. It automatically pulls in data from multiple sources, including past surveys, customer interactions, social media, data from external markets, and proprietary data. It recommends a roadmap and what type of research will give you the best insights and when. It designs quant surveys and qualitative discussions independently and then collects data. Once collected, it analyzes the results and presents clear, actionable insights without you ever needing to dive into spreadsheets or complex reports. You'll spend less time managing research and more time making smart decisions. And you can see here a prototype of our Copilot autonomously composing, feedbacking, and improving a research project from a conversation before sending it into the field. I hope this comes across as fluently as I'm seeing it, because if it doesn't, or if you want to see how the CoPilot actually synthesizes the data to generate insights in the next step, then you can always reach out to us to get a one-on-one demo from our teams.
That's super exciting. And I think you should have seen my face when you were demoing it, because this is something that I've also seen for the very first time, and it's super, super exciting. And again, I wish people were able to see my face. My jaw was on the floor to see just how much that sort of the innovation that we have planned. But I guess where I want to take this right now, and I think you wanted to take this in the same direction because you showed me the next slide. What's possible or what's hot for market research in 2025 already? We know the big vision. We know where we're headed. What do we already have?
Exactly. So let's take a look at what's possible today. So while of course I could talk a lot about things that are theoretically possible, most of them don't work reliable enough yet or provide much value outside of their demo use cases. So instead, I will show you things that have been tested and used by our more than 100 internal researchers for months before we actually release them to our clients. Perhaps some context on our approach. In order to build this future, about 2 years ago, we started moving all interactions along our customer journey onto our research platform. So this starts from the moment when a new research hypothesis is being formed to composing the questionnaire, and it continues when a questionnaire is programmed and then receives feedback from customer teams. It even goes all the way until you're working with the results of your research and start to create custom storylines on your own with our AI, with your entire team, or with one of our consultants. Today, all of this and the things I'll be showing you can already happen on our research platform. So first, our importer can take any Word or Excel file and turn it into a beautiful proofread questionnaire, leaving you the flexibility to start your project on our platform or anywhere else where you feel inspired. And moving it between systems has never been easier. This is a great way to start when you have established workflows in your company with certain office software or protocols. During proofreading, our AI can give feedback and suggestions on how to improve things, like adding missing answer options or formulating a complex question a little shorter and clearer. And it even understands and sets up filters for you. And when you and your team have discussions around what to change or to remove or to add, our AI understands what to do and will integrate and apply that feedback autonomously. In fact, it's just the push of a button to go through dozens of threads and implement changes that you and your team and perhaps our researchers agreed on. So these things alone used to take hours and now can happen within minutes. Now to data cleaning. For more than a decade, we're a panel provider. We own one of the largest consumer panels, giving access to hundreds of thousands of active individuals around the world. And why do I tell you about this? It's because when you run a panel for a decade, you build models that ensure best-in-class data quality. We call our tool the Cleaner, and it's using our self-learning infrastructure. It's a very powerful tool that has been built for data integrity at the core, upon which the entire cleaning process is built. And while our model performs exceptionally well with an accuracy of more than 98%, we still rely on final human oversight to guarantee data accuracy, reliability, and trustworthiness. Because when you want to make marketing or business decisions based on our data, this is the best way we can guarantee effectiveness. Next are boards, a revolutionary feature that allows you to create custom storylines around your data set. You can work together with your teams to create summaries, perform complex deep dives, or build classic reports, all without ever leaving our platform. And if you do need to download a PowerPoint, you could do that too. This year, boards are becoming even more powerful with automatic executive summaries that know your goals and take your research to the next level. And you can even turn your board into a video presentation to share with your stakeholders, your team, if you're an agency with your customer. All it takes is one click. Imagine you're working on a multi-country project and you need to get a board translated to any language. One click. You want to generate insights on one or multiple questions that you filtered or split in a very specific way. You get it. It's one click. And it doesn't end there. So while this isn't AI, it's foundational to the way that you're working with our platform. Boards are getting more beautiful than ever. We're adding true design customizations, so every report, every storyline you create looks as good as your own gorgeous company branding. As we have more than 100 researchers in our team, we understand that identifying themes, summarizing findings, and uncovering deeper meaning can sometimes feel like an additional full-time job. That's exactly where our AI steps in to simplify your workflow. You can now turn all your past research into your own easy-to-use knowledge base, so you can instantly find insights and spot trends whenever you need them. No more scrolling endlessly through open-ended answers. Our AI quickly highlights key themes, shows you how people really feel with our sentiment analysis, and connects the dots between topic correlations. And even complex research methods like MaxDiff become easy. Our AI does the hard work, so you can skip straight to the insights.
That's super, super exciting.
Okay,
Um,
sorry.
so I guess it's super nice that we're able to see sort of how the new innovations or these new product technologies are coming in from the entire research timeline, right? From the programming in the beginning with the AI importer to proofing the survey before going live and having the AI be this assistant that is coming in, joining us on the entire research timeline or the entire research journey. But then a question here, and I'm wondering a little bit, maybe to you, Louisa, how does this relate to the what's hot in market research right now or the trends that we are seeing in the general market research world?
Yeah, thank you, Hussein. So I think there's like high drive for efficiency just in the operational part of running research, right? So setting up surveys, translating surveys, running the field, cleaning the data, generating insights. Like there has been like such a high need to make these parts more efficient for years. And a lot of players in the industry are obviously looking at this. I know a lot of our clients are also looking for in-house solutions or trying to build their own learning systems. Over and above, of course, we also see a lot of AI driven innovation when it comes to bringing together a bunch of data sources. So, of course, companies will do primary market research, maybe with us, maybe with other providers. They will have shopper data, they will have CRM data. So, synthesizing all of these data sources into a data lake and really learning patterns is also something that we are seeing right now as like a huge trend in the industry and people really looking at it. And then, of course, we've spoken a lot about quant research so far. There's, of course, also the important counterpart of qualitative research, which has also seen huge strides now that we can have AI to moderate our panels, right? To moderate interviews, to transcribe and analyze the data. So all of the extremely manual, tedious parts of qualitative research already are being replaced by AIs. So we can focus on what really matters, which is obviously the insights we get from respondents.
I am so glad you say this, and I'm so happy you brought this up because, as someone who's drowning in academia myself, the talk between quant versus qual is an ongoing discussion, right? It's something that is always the talk of the town. And we just showed and we just talked a lot about quant, and we talked a lot about this quant data. And Louisa just gave us an excellent segue to talk about qual. Gaudi, what do we have in the qual? What are we doing, or what's hot in the qual season?
Okay, perfect. So you saw my cue. I was so excited to go to the next slide. So you had a sneak peek already. So I'm going to take a deep breath. So we talked a lot about quantitative research, but qualitative research is evolving just as quickly. So later this year, our AI will let you run qualitative research at a scale never possible before. Imagine having AI moderators conducting thousands of conversations simultaneously, instantly transcribing and analyzing discussions to uncover deeper insights into customer feelings and motivations. And this isn't all science fiction, it's already happening. And our newest product is a perfect example. It gives you access to instant, lifelike customer personas, created from real qualitative data, which you can interact with anytime you need feedback quick, and it generates qualitative insights. So first, our AI-powered persona chats instantly reveal real conversational insights. They help you deeply understand how your target audience thinks, speaks, and what they genuinely care about. leading to stronger customer-driven product and marketing decisions. Second, with AI persona chats, you can quickly test product ideas, campaigns, or messaging without waiting for lengthy surveys or focus groups. Immediate feedback allows rapid iteration and improvement, shortening the time from idea to launch, or from napkin sketch to powerful research question. And third, interacting with AI personas humanizes your audience, fostering empathy and understanding. Your team becomes more customer-centric, aligning product design and marketing strategies directly with authentic consumer needs, desires, and pain points. And Louisa showed this yesterday at a CMO event in the Netherlands for the first time. And I would love to give you a demo of our working prototype if I had an extra 15 minutes, which unfortunately isn't possible today. So if you're interested in this, please reach out to us for a demo, a one-on-one demo, and early access. Speaking of synthetic personas, let's touch briefly on another exciting area, synthetic data. So synthetic data is computer-generated information that accurately mimics real consumer data. It's particularly useful when real data is difficult to obtain or limited by privacy concerns. For example, imagine you want to predict customer responses to a new product, but you don't yet have enough real customer data. Synthetic data allows you to build realistic data sets for predictive models, helping you make a solid decision early on. But it's critical to remember that the quality of your prediction models relies heavily on accurate training data, making it essential to balance synthetic data with real validated information. That's where Opinio is uniquely positioned. We own one of the largest consumer panels with millions of real people, and they're creating millions of data points on anything that's happening in the world every single day. And we're experimenting with modeling trends as they're developing. And it's not just after your competitor has already caught on to them. This is very exciting, and I can't wait to show you more on how this works in action. Of course, we know that all panels, and that includes our panel as well, has inherent biases, which is why we're going to synthesize this with external data sources. These are early efforts, and we will show you more as we're progressing. The most important thing to keep in mind is where the application of synthetic data makes sense. This is the perfect time to hand over to my incredibly talented colleague, Louisa, to explain more in detail.
Thank you, Gordy. So obviously, the possibility to use synthetic data is really exciting. It will solve a lot of like underlying issues we've had in the market research space for decades, which is where do we get respondents and how do they give us good quality data? And I think it's a really good example how a product team like Gordy's and a research team like mine can interact, because what I wonder or think about is what are good applications for synthetic data and where should we maybe still rely on a human respondent and a human answer. Because of course, in our market research space, there is a variety of different use cases and research questions that we're addressing. So for example, I think there's research questions and use cases where synthetic data already today makes perfect sense. For example, if we're researching an existing product in a market that we already know. So let's say we're a French company, we have a main product, we've had that product for years, we have data on this product, and then we want to do a line extension or we want to learn something more about our existing product. Here already, we can leverage synthetic data because we know things about our product and we know stuff about the French market. And we already see like things like eye tracking data already at this stage can be synthetic with like a 90% accuracy. So you don't even have to slap these eye tracking glasses on people anymore. However, other use cases, for example, a brand tracking or brand health measurement will be really, really hard to replicate with synthetic data for a longer time. Because what we want to measure with the brand tracking is how our brand is perceived outside in the world, right? And that is just accumulation of the out-of-home ads we had, the Instagram ads we posted, stuff we did on TV, PR, word of mouth, and how is an AI or a synthetic persona supposed to know about all of these things happening in the real world, like the very subliminal things. So maybe at one point it will be possible, but I think for now, like brand health tracking will stay very human-based, but maybe just like small idea screening and concept testing for existing products will shift to synthetic audiences like this year already.
Louisa, so glad we talked about this, because I think this brings us full circle from our last year's What's Hot in Market Research when we talked about synthetic data. So this is really nice to see sort of the progress that was also made on our discussions from last year. But that brings me then towards, because you talked a lot about methodologies and finding the suitable place. So maybe let me turn the discussion a little bit towards methodologies and sort of constantly challenging the status quo, because that is something that is the pillar of our research team at Opinio, right? We challenge the status quo. We go, we say, if we see something's wrong, we say it's wrong. We want the insights industry to sort of redefine itself into accurate insights. Why is that important? Maybe let's start there.
Yeah, I love to talk about this topic. So you all have to bear with me right now, and it's not going to look as sexy as Gordy's part because I don't have a product to show. Um, but I mean, we have seen, like with all the stuff that we've just discussed right now and Gordy's prototypes, that we can really make this whole journey more efficient, right? So reducing time to insight even more, removing all of the like manual clutter from the process. However, and I guess all of you know this, market research is still a garbage in, garbage out principle, you know? If we ask the wrong questions and if we measure incorrect KPIs, no matter how efficient we are, it will always be garbage in the end. And we don't want to deliver garbage. We want to deliver proper insights that predict future scenarios and that are actionable. And if you know me, you know that I love this industry, right? I love my job and I love working here. But I have one big bone to pick with all of us. And I've had this bone to pick for decades, which is the lack of a common understanding and framework of the things we should measure. So, for example, like you in the audience, you might have an ad campaign you want to validate, right? So, you know, you want to do ad pre-testing. So you go to 6 different institutes and ask them to do an ad pre-test for you. And every single institute will do a different thing. Like Institute A will tell you, oh, no, no, no. Emotionality of the ad is super important. We do emotional facial coding. The second institute will tell you, no, no, no. Breakthrough and distinctiveness of the branding is important. We will ask about this. The third institute will tell you to focus on creativity and what people associate with it. You know, like everyone will do something different. And that is weird and something that is supposed to be a science and research. Because, like, imagine you go to 6 different doctors with COVID symptoms, and every single doctor will use a different test and will diagnose you with a different illness and give you a different treatment plan. No, what happens is you go to 6 doctors, you have COVID symptoms, and they will all administer some sort of COVID test. Yes, like the test itself might be a bit different. Maybe it's a PCR test, maybe it's a rapid test, but ultimately they all do a similar thing, better or worse, but they're still there to diagnose you with COVID. And then most likely all doctors will tell you, yes, you do have COVID, please go home and isolate. And I feel like this is something that has been missing from our industry for a long time. Like everything is like really black boxed. We just do random things. No one really knows why. And like ultimately that goes to the detriment of the companies that have to work with our insights, because we all just want to deliver actionable stuff, right? And then Hussein, like I'm sure you know this data, but sometimes we even know something doesn't work and we still continue doing it, you know? So this is a paper from last year, but there's been a lot of research on this topic, that there's just no correlation between a net promoter score and market share growth. So what you can see here is like a direct screenshot from the paper where we have like 4 different companies like Ford, Kia, Aldi, and then the one line is the NPS and the other line is the market share growth. And as you can see, there's really no clear correlation. Like the lines do stuff, but there's not that effect that if NPS is high, market share is high and vice versa. Um, and this has gotten a lot of traction on like LinkedIn a few months ago. And everyone in the comments was like, oh, yeah, yeah, of course. Like we know that the NPS doesn't work. And I was like, okay, but if we all know this, like why do we continue using it, you know? So I feel like right now there's a bit of like a vacuum on what should we actually measure as companies, what is our common understanding, which KPIs will actually help us make better decision and fuel brand growth and market share growth in the end.
That sounds messy, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. When we have this knowledge and everyone's saying, yeah, we know it's bad, we know, and there's all these million methods out there. So like, is it really that messy, or what are we looking at here?
Well, it is a bit messy because research is always a bit messy, like in the principle. But no, of course, there's already great research out there, right? So I just put together like a collection of different sources, but there's really smart people, either in academia or practitioners, or on the institute side as well, right? That try to make sense of this mess, right? I think like here in blue, the Ehrenberg Bass Institute with Byron Sharp is obviously extremely like well known. They do proper academic research. I mean, they are a university, right? To see which factors actually lead brands to grow and how can we measure them. Then we have other pieces like the long and short of it from Binet and Field, where they did a deep dive into IPA award data to really see what differentiates a successful campaign from an unsuccessful one. And there have been a lot of like local derivations of that concept. We see other institutes, right? Like, for example, Kantar and System One deep diving into the huge data set that they have to find drivers. We have smaller researchers writing papers that no one in this group will likely read because it's very niche. But if you dig deep in Google Scholar, you'll find these papers. And then you have all of these really smart people on LinkedIn, like, for example, Dan White. I can really recommend him. Mark Ritson or Kuhn Powell's, just discussing these ideas, also writing article in Marketing Week and whatsoever. So there's a lot of like movement out there, but for me it's kind of like missing the connecting pieces, like so many people do things in silos, and then Byron Sharp gets into a huge fight with Kantar, but it's not really productive instead of them working together on a joint goal. And also a lot of these things are just opinion pieces. They're really smart people with smart opinions, but ultimately it's still an opinion, and we kind of need to validate like what should we actually measure in all of our research to get KPIs that predict brand growth, that predict that our concepts work, that predict that our ads work. I think is really something where we need a bit more alignment.
So, a little disclaimer before I ask you my next question. And the disclaimer is you both told me I could ask you anything in the webinar. So, I'm just saying that to save my job after this. So, you signed up for this. But my question is, I always hear you say, every time, whenever we're in a meeting, whenever we're discussions, whenever we're sort of talking, the sentence that the market yearns for better methods, for better methodologies,
Mhm.
and better processes. And hearing you say it in this slide right now, I almost heard exactly that, but put together in a slide. But what shifts are we sort of observing then? What are we looking at?
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe I sounded a bit negative until now. Maybe I didn't have enough coffee this morning, but actually, like, I'm really, really hopeful for positive changes. And I think something that we've been observing for the last, I think it's nearly 2 years at this point, has been this huge shift in the way how we approach brand health tracking, which, of course, for most companies is a huge undertaking. It's a very expensive long-term research project. And also for people on the institute side, like ourselves, it's also a really important piece of research to run. And I mean, we've always done it the funnel way, asking for unaided awareness, aided awareness, consideration. Everyone has done it that way, right? Every company, every institute. No one really liked it. And then when Better Brand Health was published, I think it was March 2 years ago, like exactly, the industry was really yearning for something better. Like I really feel like both the institutes and people on client side like really like gobbled up this book and tried to pivot from like a funnel based approach to a category entry based, a mental availability based approach. And I mean, I think if I look at our own data, over a third of the brand trackers that we run within Opinio are already now a CP based one instead of a funnel based one. And for me, it's a great development because this was published by a university, right? It's open source. And we saw like some institutes adapting this approach, right? We're not the only ones. Like other players in the market were like, oh, that's smart, right? We should be working with this. Or companies read this book and were like, oh, we should shift our brand tracking. And in this, like in people using the method, we started this discourse. So I hang out on LinkedIn conversations a lot, but like people have a very healthy fight on how to optimize this method. So, for example, we also took the book and then we started just doing it by the book 2 years ago. And our clients kept challenging us, and other institutes kept challenging us to do better. So we did more experiments, we did more tests, and we developed the method. And I think this is how it should be, right? We should all say, okay, category entry points make sense. There's proven evidence, and then find the best way to measure it through some friendly, competition and collaboration at the same time.
I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn conversations is a sentence you'll probably only hear at an opinion webinar or with a conversation with Louisa, who spends a lot of time on LinkedIn conversations. But Louisa, having worked alongside you for 3 years, you just showed us the status quo. You showed us a good example. So what I'm guessing is coming up is how we want to merge that good example into good practices. So that's going to be what I'm going to ask you. What's next? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, so as I said, I think we've seen some positive shifts already, like people just really demanding better methods. And brand tracking is
Mhm.
like one space that's already innovating. I saw someone wrote in the chat that they really like a brand funnel approach. And that's fine, right? The brand funnel was never really broken. Like this one, empirically proven, is more predictive, but it doesn't make the funnel any less important. But I think brand tracking is just one approach. And the next step, I believe, is innovation testing and ad testing, because also those are huge pieces of research. Like happens for nearly every company, like multiple times. A lot of providers, like on agency side, offer those. And really, I feel like with tracking, it was either like the funnel or this. But when it comes to concept testing and ad testing, really is extremely messy. I feel like there's very little standards. Like everyone just claims something, and you have no idea of knowing, is that actually valid and proven, or are they peddling like snake oil? You just don't know because there's no framework. So, my vision for this year and also the upcoming years is that we as an industry come up with a framework based on research and based on hypotheses, how we believe a good ad performs, right? So, a framework for ad effectiveness and a framework for concept effectiveness that hasn't been cooked up in a black box by an institute, but similar to Better Brand Health, is open knowledge, because this is how research should be, right? Research is not a secret, research is for everyone. And yeah, I put a very messy screenshot. That is what my brain looks like on a slide. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but as you can see, right, it's very hypothesis driven. So reading all of the papers that are out there, all of the thoughts, formulating hypotheses and then validating them to then really know, okay, what are the 4 KPIs we need to measure about an ad that most likely predict very good ad performance. So, this is something I think we as an industry should be working on. And I see the enthusiasm to start doing that.
But how should we tackle this then as an industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think, Gordy just showed us that hopefully AI will free up a lot of our capacities that we're spending on repetitive tasks. So hopefully we have more time to think, because thinking sometimes takes time, to experiment and to collaborate. And I think what is really needed is that people from academia, like for example, a Brian Sharp, and people from practice, like both in industry side and agency side, really come together and have a healthy discussion. And then we run some experiments, and like in proper academic research, we talk about it, right? We say this worked, this did not work, so we can align on KPIs that we measure for ad testing. And yes, then it's up to the research agencies like ourselves to turn this into a product that makes sense, that is sexy and easy to use. That's then going to be Gordy's problem in the future. But that if a client asks an institute for an ad test or a concept test, they can be confident that they're going to measure something that makes sense and not something random.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I'm super happy you shared this little your thinking model, because it's super interesting to see. This is something that our partners and our clients and our friends, something that they don't usually get to see about the way we do our work and the way we measure everything. So I think that's super super interesting that we get to talk about our thinking like that. But I think now is a great time for us to jump into a Q&A round. But maybe just before we do that, I took down some notes to really bring our conversation together before we jump into the Q&A. So maybe let's remove our slides here so that the people can see us nice and clean as we take the questions. But what did we talk about? We talked about a very interesting discussion where we've covered a lot of ground, from the rise of AI powered research and their operating systems to sort of the transformation of consumer research into a true science. And forgive me if I here my own handwriting, I'm a victim of it. But it's clear that the future of market research isn't just about collecting data faster. It's about making research smarter. It's about making research more predictive and ultimately more impactful for businesses. What's really exciting is how these sort of two forces, efficiency and effectiveness, aren't separate but sort of deeply connected. You know, the automation and AI driven advancements and these things that we've discussed today, they're not just streamlining research processes. They're not just the next hot thing in market research, but they're freeing up insights leaders, people like Louisa, to focus on what really matters, guiding business decisions with data driven confidence. At Opinio, we do believe that the best research happens at the intersection of brilliant methodologies and cutting edge technology, which is why I think today's panel was such a perfect representation of how we approach market research, product and research working hand in hand to sort of push the boundaries. So, without that, let me stop yapping and let's jump straight into some questions. And the first questions we have here is an anonymous question that we received about our CoPilot. The co-pilot sounds interesting, but this would mean to conduct all relevant market research with Opinio to properly use it. What do we think?
Okay. First of all, that's a great question. So, of course, some of the functionality, like you, for instance, saw when it's about synthesizing questions across your entire project base, then it's helpful to have everything in one system. But the Copilot itself, I think there's just multiple questions, so I might jump ahead here. But you think of the Copilot as having this really knowledgeable assistant that's sitting next to you, instantly helping you drafting uh, um, uh, drafting projects, analyzing data, or creating presentation and storylines for you. So it does work just as fine if you just switch to us. And there's, I mean, I'm going to geek out here a little bit, but there's just last week, Anthropic released a new protocol standard for AI systems to communicate with each other. And of course, this is super recent. It's going to take some time. It's called MCP, but it will allow you to have your data and your information in multiple places. And our Copilot could still get the relevant information. So you have the synthesis and the insight generation. You have everything that you need in one place, wherever that place is, when you need it and where you need it. So that's super exciting.
Nice. Next is a question that sort of relates to that from AG, which is how does the Opinio Copilot tool complete or double with our own Copilot licenses, so software that they may already be using in place at their companies?
Okay, great question. I think the term Copilot, we associate it if we're using Office 365, we're associating it with, for instance, the Copilot that also Microsoft has. But these are separate systems. So really think about it. Whatever Copilot you currently have, whatever license you have, that is designed to work as an assistant in the suite of software that you're currently using it in. And the Copilot that we're developing, it will be the assistant that works on our platform, helping you with your research needs.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think the Opinio Copilot will really be a huge surprise to everyone when they first try it out. Truly magical. I think Louisa can tell us a little bit about the reactions from people who saw it for the first time in our booth a little bit later. But let's stick to the questions. We have one more, which is about the comparative usage of the Opinio tool. So, is there a comparative advantage to using the Opinio tool compared to others like MaxQDA, etc.?
Yeah, thank you, Hussein. Like before we speak about specific tools, I think one huge development that is like currently happening is that like every single provider, but also every single company creates some sort of like in-house solutions, right? We've already seen someone ask that in their company, apparently they're creating something, then maybe someone is using like the tools that you've mentioned in the question, or like qualitative, like transcription tools, right? Using these tools that are building an AI, and like everyone is building an AI. And I feel like it's similar to the early internet for everyone who is an older millennial or even older in this group. When we first started using the internet, everyone started buying a server for their own house. Like my parents also had a server in the basement, and everyone just owned a server. And then they were like, "Oh, damn, we need to protect that server from like damages." And then they all got server insurances, and it was really inefficient. And then over time, we had a few large providers emerge, like for example AWS, that just understand server solutions and just host that for everyone. And I think this is something that we're going to see in the next months and years, that a lot of people develop solutions and then we all realize it doesn't make sense, it's really inefficient, and we need to bundle this. And then a few large players will emerge that are really like the AWS for market research. Obviously, I'm not going to say it's going to be us, but I think it's going to happen in the industry. It has to happen because otherwise, it's just super inefficient. It's like you're having 20 different streaming providers to watch one movie once a week. Like no one wants this.
I agree. I need less subscriptions in my day now, me personally. But the next question over is from Sergio, and Sergio is asking: have we developed solutions to analyze social media discussions? So scraping data from Reddit and using the AI to analyze and summarize via prompts.
That's an excellent question. So we are experimenting with it. So we don't have anything to ship to you today, but we're experimenting with it. And the systems, especially AI-driven systems, they're finally smart enough to understand when you have these social listening sort of like the devices, you usually go into groups or specific places where you know potential customers are going to talk about your product. Now we're at the stage where these systems, they can understand no matter where it is, and if the context is around your product, and then what we can do, or what these systems can help us do through AI, is to do and to run automatic sentiment analysis, for instance, on the conversation that is going on. So it doesn't have to be a Reddit thread on your product. It can actually be a Reddit thread on a competitor product, but then the comments are actually revolving around your product, and we can pull that data in. So of course, we're working with getting that social source into our products as well.
I didn't think you were gonna give us that much of a glimpse, but I'm super excited you shared that. It's super exciting to really finally be able to talk about these things that we have happening behind the scenes, right? It feels super exciting. But then maybe let's jump to our next question here, because we have a bunch and they keep coming in. But we have an anonymous question that we have, which is: have we tested the AI consumer personas compared to real group insights?
That's another great question. So I think there's another one. I'm going to combine these two. There's another one that's very similar. It's along the lines of that AI generally has been tuned or geared towards more positive responses. And in general, or yeah, they tend to be more neutral or positive by default. But when you properly train them on diverse real world data, we found that it closely aligns with actual critical consumer responses. So in fact, our early comparisons show that AI can accurately capture consumer concerns about 85% of the time, especially when guided by realistic personas and, of course, carefully validated prompts.
Hmm. That's super nice to think and sort of to understand, even for me, right? Someone who wasn't on the product team, to understand how these things were built and how these things were created, of course, in cooperation with members of the research team. So that's always super nice to think about. But I guess let's move into our next question. And our next question here is from Manuel. And Manuel says, so far, the AI has been geared towards positive responses. Obviously, consumers are not like that and usually are more critical. So, are those AI feedbacks really reliable? And have we compared it to real feedbacks, or are there any use cases? So maybe this relates also to the thing you were just talking about, Cody. So
Yeah, exactly. That's the one I just merged because
yeah.
they were both very similar. So again, it comes down to the data sources that you're using, and to the fine tuning of the model and the prompting.
But maybe to add to this, so yeah, we all know that respondents are normally people pleasers. They like to pick a top two box, and in the qualitative research, they also like to please the interviewer. But something that we and a lot of other players have also seen is that when we do an AI moderated interview, so if I do qual research, but it's not a human interviewing the respondent, it's an AI in some shape or form interviewing the responses get more honest because people are not that guided by social desirability. They don't want to please the AI that is normally just like a chatbot. They're also not that like scared. So for example, there was a really cool study from a startup that did a qualitative research on like skincare with men. And when men were talking to a human interviewer, they were a bit cagey and they were like, no, 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 like it's just not, I don't need that. But when they were interviewed by the AI, they were more honest and they were like, actually, I have like no idea where to start. Like there's way too many products. No one educates me. Everything is like so girly coded. Like all of the influencers are girls. Like I have zero idea. So they actually had a pain point. They actually want to do skincare, but they don't know where to start. And they were like more open and honest with the AI. So I think even in that regard, like countering positivity bias and social desirability bias can be helped by using AI to have these conversations with the respondents.
I mean, I love the example you used because I was just talking to an AI about my own skincare. So very fitting, Louisa. But I guess let's take the next question from Anonymous. And would the consumer persona chat be compatible with already existing personas used internally? So I guess this is going to be a similar answer to the question that was asked earlier about the CoPilot.
Yeah, but again, it's an excellent one, and I do really appreciate the interest in the product that we demoed there. So what in the short demo that I couldn't show is, of course, you can set up custom personas, right? So you can model them to exactly fit the ones that you want to speak to, and if you do have a target group analysis, for instance, with us, and you do know exactly what are the traits and the attributes that make up these personas, of course, we can also assist you with that automatically when we ship the product to you and make it available to you. Or of course, you can also set the ones up from your competitors, right? So you can say, okay, and chat a little bit about and see, okay, what do they like more about some other product versus my product. So there's multiple groups that you can create, and you can have conversations and bounce idea around. So of course, they're compatible with your existing personas.
I'm personally super excited to be invited to an internal beta, and I'm dropping this hint right now in front of everybody, so there's proof that I said it. But let's jump into the next question from Sergio. So, for concept testing and synthetic data, how do you deal with clients needing some type of benchmarks?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I think there's two like possible routes how this can go. Like I know that especially for concept and ad testing, approach with benchmarks is very common. You know, a lot of the like heritage players have decades of benchmarks that we're benchmarking against, and this is working for now. So of course, if we want to train a synthetic panel, we can do that with the benchmark in mind, right? Like it's not that different from running the survey with human respondents. We can still consider the benchmarks as our action standards. However, and that kind of ties into what we've discussed like in the second part of the webinar, does it even make sense to look at benchmarks? Yeah, this is the status quo, but just because like a product performs better than the average of past products or than an internal benchmark, does that really mean this product is going to be successful in the market? We assume that, and it makes sense on eye level. Like I'm not going to fight this, but maybe we realize actually benchmarking approach doesn't make that much sense. We rather have to build like very complicated regression models to have a predictability. Well, and then the questionnaire, the survey, the panel will look very different. So I think that's just something that we have to see in the next years. But if we want to stick with benchmarks, for me, it's not really a contradiction to then having a synthetic panel or just synthetic data to measure a concept or an ad.
Maybe Louisa, to stay with you a little bit, because the next question is also a question that you also alluded to while you were doing your own presentation, which is the anonymous question that we have now, which I do not believe that there is one way that one method will work for everybody, of course. And people like the brand funnel approach. Louisa, what do we do? The brand funnel is loved. Our customers love it. It's the first things my customers ask of me when they want to do a tracking in the projects that they handle with me. How do we go about this?
Well, firstly, don't fix it if it ain't broken. You know, if it's working and you really feel the insights you get from a funnel-based tracking are actionable, it helps you design better campaigns, better communication, it predicts your business growth, great, right? Then don't touch it. However, like I see so many struggles with the classic brand trackers where clients will come back and be like, hey, our consideration went down by 3 percentage points. Question one, is that even something to worry about? Question two, if so, what do we do about it? And oftentimes these things are harder to gather from such a tracker. Um, but I'm also a pragmatic person. And there was another question about change management as well. So what I normally recommend is what I call the Hannah Montana approach. So doing the best of both worlds, which is basically starting with the brand funnel and then adding the category entry points as a block. So you can measure both things at the same time. And it also gives you a lot of insights on how do these metrics compare, like awareness and mental penetration. Are they similar? Are they dissimilar? And that kind of also eases a change process internally with stakeholders, but also just from a pragmatic perspective, because changing a brand tracker is painful. You sometimes have 20 years of historic data you need to somehow transform. So I've seen this work like really well for a lot of clients.
It's one of my favorite things to do as well when it comes to projects, and I always love to hear when clients come back and say how much they truly appreciated the insights and CEPs of mental availability. So that's always really, really nice to see. We have two more questions, so hang in there, hang with me. But let's take the first one here. Is there any research in progress on our side on measuring innovation potential as we did on the other projects, like the brand health test?
Yes, so this is something that my like research excellence team is working on. So while Gordy is thinking about how to design like a beautiful product, my team and Hussein also is part of this development oftentimes, we try to develop better KPIs to measure. How do we do this? Like actually like the way you've maybe written your master thesis as well, right? So we do a lot of literature review. We read all the books, we read all the papers. So you don't have to. However, if you want all the access, message me on LinkedIn. I will share all my resources, right? So much for like academic standards. So we read all of the research and then we formulated hypotheses like based on everything that we know from the research, but also from our own experience doing this for years. What do we believe are predictors for concept effectiveness, for ad effectiveness? And now we're validating those with actual company side data. And that will take time. It's like nothing that will be ready in a month, right? It's a tedious, annoying, iterative process, like writing a PhD thesis, Hussein, you will know. But the outcome ideally is then a very good method how to run concept testing, how to run ad testing. That is also like everything is out in the open. We're like, yeah, we measure this because of that, you know. So we're constantly working on this, but we don't have a sexy prototype to show. Sadly, that's not how research works. It all looks really boring. It's just papers in a folder and some charts.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the final question about us developing webinars to help companies evolve from traditional formal approach to best practices, of course, without asking people to read the book. And I'll quickly answer that right now. And the answer is yes, apinio.com/webinars. You'll be able to see all the work we've been doing on the topic. You'll be able to see some of our webinars that we've ran with clients on case studies and test cases on projects that they ran with us. You'll be able to see our product in more details, and you'll be able to see what problems we provided, what solutions for. So we're constantly doing these learnings, we're constantly doing these webinars for this exact purpose, to bring forth this change that we talked about and that we're preaching into the thought leadership of the industry. Louisa, Gordian, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your expertise, vision, and passion for the future of our industry. And of course, a huge thank you to all of you for joining us here today. If you want to revisit any of the insights from today's session, please feel free to go ahead, add us on LinkedIn, talk to us, send us emails. Louisa is addicted to LinkedIn and she's always there in conversations. We're always there. We're all nerds. We love talking about methodologies and product and the innovation. Please reach out, talk to us about anything. And until then, we'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Hussein, for hosting.
Thank you.